So, good morning to everybody. We are here in Soltec talking about Omnichannel this morning, and we are actually talking the Omnichannel and the problems with it that there seems to be, and the challenges that there seems to be around the Omnichannel world. Here with me this morning, Director of Research, Richard Cuthbertson from Oxford University. Welcome.
Thank you.
And welcome to Finland.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here as well. And then we have Eero Haavisto, who's our online business consultant here in Soltec. Welcome, Eero.
Thank you.
It's nice to be here with you guys. And my name is Minna, and I'm a sales and marketing director here in Soltec. And today we are actually talking about Omnichannel. And if we start from the basics, because Omnichannel can mean quite a lot of things to different people. It's not a very simple area. So, Richard, how would you describe what is Omnichannel, what it actually is and means?
Really, it's just retail in a different context.
Mm-hmm.
The world has changed. 20 years ago, there weren't the same digital channels that we have now. And so it's about how does retail adapt to that new context.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, we're all in an omni-channel world, whether we want it or not, yes. And so it's just about how do we adapt to that new environment.
I actually found a quite nice picture evolving around it. Let's see if everybody can see it now. So it basically shows that the customer is on the center, but the world around it is quite complex. It's basically everything like you mentioned.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And that's the challenge of Omnichannel, of course, is
Mm-hmm.
that what you're trying to do is bring together the physical and the digital, and in particular, as you can see from the slide,
Mm-hmm.
lots of different digital channels, whether it's mobile, whether it's online, etc.
Mm-hmm. And you described earlier when we discussed about the matter that in the old days, it basically is very linear. You start the path from somewhere and end it in somewhere.
Absolutely.
But now it's everywhere.
Yes. So in the old days, a customer would go to a town centre, would go to a store, and similarly the store would deal with a supplier who would deliver a product to the store.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was linear. And now it's much more networked. I don't just go to a store. When I'm in the store, I still have my mobile phone.
Mm-hmm.
I can check the price of other products in other stores. So there's just a whole different way of working for retail now.
Right, it's just buying is just a small part of it. It's the whole journey, and where it begins is you can't always
absolutely
actually know when you're buying.
Yeah,
that's what we talked before,
and also when you're browsing, when you're doing that shopping. So when I'm on Facebook sending out my photos of what I'm doing in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still getting messages from Facebook, I'm still getting messages from my friends and so on, which are actually informing me about the shopping process.
Mm-hmm.
So I might not actually be transacting at that time,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm still in this omni-channel environment. I mean, that's the other thing about it, that it's 24/7. It's not just about when is the store open.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the change has actually happened in quite a short period of time.
Yes, yeah, like any technological revolution,
Mm-hmm.
something comes along and it changes everything. And I think that's a really important thing with this particular slide where the customer is in the middle. An important thing to understand is that the customer is also experimenting.
Mm-hmm.
The customer does not know what they are doing. We are still working out how do we use these channels, what ones do we use for what process and so on. We might have a favorite online retailer, for example, at the moment.
Yes.
But that may change as we go into the future, because it may be that online retailer is hidden in some way, because it might start to be our news provider or our mobile provider or some other service
because the roles
provider.
are mixing,
Right.
getting mixed as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, the retailer shouldn't be that worried about the situation because everybody's exploring and we're still trying to find what's the right way to do it.
Yeah, it's evolving all the time, and if you also consider all the technology that's coming, you know, VR, AR, AI, all of that. As we talked before, we are still experiencing. The retailers are experiencing. The technology is experiencing, and kind of like trying out different ways to do retail.
Yes.
In online and offline.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
combining those two.
I mean, I'm not sure retailers shouldn't be worried because the world has changed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And have you adapted to it? Can you change to
meet
meet that new world? Or of
Right.
course, if you're new, if you're just starting up a business, you have to think about retailing in a very different way. Even for a very traditional family-run convenience store, they are still working in an omnichannel world now.
Yes.
And so they need to be thinking about how do we actually
different ways than just the brick and mortar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I actually found quite interesting slide. It's actually almost 4 years old IBM survey, and it's about the customer expectations. And if we think about our subject today, why omnichannel is so difficult, that's obviously one thing. But then in the other side, there's customers who already have high expectation, have actually had them for quite many years already.
Yep.
So
because we were just talking about customer expectations.
Yes.
And how we just assume this stuff is going to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though in reality, we know
that
technology quite often falls over, humans quite often fall over, etc. And one of the challenges with being online, for example, is that the customer expectations are high both in the store and online. The trouble is online is that some of that becomes much more visible.
Yes.
So for example, food retailers, when they go online, they often find that they're out of stock of certain products.
Yes.
When we go in the store and we go for a certain item, we then intuitively, if the product isn't there, we quite often substitute or something like that. And we almost pretend to ourselves we weren't going for that particular product, we were just going for a chicken-based meal or whatever it was. Whereas online, we are clicking on a particular product.
Yes.
And so if it's not there,
so very much more open for the errors as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And we might have been exploring and researching the exact product for a long time, and
trying to find the right price.
Exactly. And when you find the right product, you usually want it right now.
Yeah.
And that's one of the issues here when we are facing for the future, is that we have very needy, wanting customer.
But that's no different. We've always had very needy, wanting customers. It's just because customers have always wanted everything for free immediately. You know, that's human nature.
But it's just that it brings
organize the world around me.
Yes.
Right.
But it brings that visibility with it, and also it brings the expectations, because now we're suddenly being promised that. Whereas when I went in my local store 20 years ago, I didn't even know what else was out there.
Yes.
So if the product wasn't on the shelf, how was I to know there was a better product when I was?
So the globalization is
product,
affecting
prices, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you gotta have the visibility, right, and the accuracy of the stock. I mean, if you go online and look for a product and it says it's online, it's in stock, and you want it now, you go to the store and it's not there.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing is ruined. The customer journey.
Yes. And you're more open up to complain, obviously.
Right.
But if you go back to the problematicity of omnichannel, what's the issue here? It's difficult, yes, we know that.
Complex,
But
yeah.
why is it so difficult?
It's difficult because everything needs to be integrated.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if you operate in a linear world, nice hierarchy, A happens, then B happens, then C happens, you can organize in a way to make that happen.
Yes.
Whereas in a, so for example, you know, you've got a new product, so you need a big marketing campaign, then you need it in the stores, then you need to distribute it and so on. That's in a linear world. The trouble is now we're in a networked world. So it's not just about what happens from the supplier to the headquarters, to the store and out to the customer.
Yes.
Now, all of that is happening at the same time. The customer is looking online, doing their shopping and their browsing, even before they get to the store. They're understanding what is out there, what is available. The store person needs to understand what is also online and available through our brand,
yes,
as well as what is available within the store. So, for example, in the old days, if a customer came in the store and you didn't have the product, if you were good at customer service, you would actually refer them to a competitor. You would say, actually, we don't have that in stock, but I do know that 2 doors down, they will have it.
Yes.
Now, you need to know, do we have it in stock ourselves online?
Right.
Because we can still keep that sale.
Yes.
Yeah, so you do the good customer service to keep the customer, but can you keep the sale as well?
Yeah, and I suppose in an omnichannel world, the actual, when you face the customer in a situation like this, you should be able to serve them straight away and order that and send it through online.
Absolutely.
So you would actually take care of them, so they are not going to go to the competitor.
And that's what the good retailers can do now.
This is actually quite basic stuff. But this is not working.
But customers, they value service, good service. And also, as it goes all the way to the organizational level, to align everyone into the same mutual goal of serving the customer.
Absolutely.
And you gotta have also, when you're combining online and offline, you gotta have also the in the store locations, you have to have it ready for let's say online pickups or returns, and you gotta have the personnel there aware of, as we talked about the online channel too, and all of that.
So it's the complexity.
And it's integrating that complexity, not from just the technology point of view, but that is important because you need to have all the information in the right place at the right time, etc.
Yes.
But it's also about the organizational complexity of that. So very simply, example, if I'm a customer assistant, you come to me in the store, you're a customer, we don't have it in the store, but
okay. So let's continue. It's the technology. We're talking about the technology issues, and I'm very sorry that this seems to be very on top this morning. But
again, it's another example because in the past, technology would be linear. All we would be doing is communicating with one person.
Yes.
And it would be a straightforward, reliable system.
The
trouble is we're in a networked world.
Yes.
And this is the challenge for retailers today, is that they are trying to pull together all of the different technologies, not just of themselves, that at least you could standardize within your own organization, but with their suppliers, with their customers. You know, somebody's using an Android device, somebody's using an Apple device. So it's about how do we make everything come together, integrate it. And as I say, organizationally, that's very difficult. In a linear system, I can just have a hierarchy. You can start from one point, say the strategy is most important or whatever, and then you can mark it down. You can't do that in this world. We have to be organized so that we're flexible, so that we're adaptable, so that when the customer moves from one store format to another store format, to the online channel, to social media, to wherever, all of that is being integrated. All of it comes together.
So if we get together on the possibilities, basically it's the organizational issues, because it's complex world. There are so many possibilities. So everybody needs to understand how this whole thing is working. Everybody's role has to be defined, and basically the whole organization has to be around the omnichannel itself.
Absolutely, and that fundamentally changes the nature of a retail business. So, for example, previously, how would you measure the worth of a store? Sales per square meter. Something simple like that would be a very important metric for a store.
Yes.
But now, what if the store is doing lots of great customer service, but not many sales?
Yes.
So how are you now measuring the store? Because if you measure it by sales per square meter, maybe you shut that store. That's absolutely crucial for customer service.
Yes, and obviously feeds the online again.
Yes. So on the other hand, maybe it's because sales are declining and it's a poor store. So we, you have to rethink about the metrics that are used.
And the role of the brick and mortar shops. They're becoming more and more showrooms.
Yes, that's very true. That's one of the possibilities that we're actually going.
They're facing a new era and facing a new role of the customer journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, but what's interesting is that those that do the showroom effect well usually have very high sales as well.
Yes. Because you are not you are affecting on the customer in different ways.
Absolutely,
yes.
And also you're attracting a customer who wants to engage with your brand.
Yes.
Yeah.
And therefore you're all of that coming together in the physical space.
Yes.
And we're still human beings. We shouldn't forget that. We're still human beings. There is still a value in a face-to-face
interaction. It's actually rising as well, because I think, Eero, you mentioned in that one research that we were referring to earlier this morning, and we were getting ready for the webinar, was the fact that the younger generation, the millennials, are actually expecting brick and mortar to bring same elements as online is doing at the moment. Okay, here we are again. We're so sorry. This seems to be like a karma day today for the actual.
It's a Monday on the Wednesday.
Discussing about the complexity. Well, next thing is that we are going to go actually into the possibilities, because I hope that it will affect on the network as well here in Soltec office.
I think just picking up on something that Eero was talking about just then about inspiration. And again, that's really going to change. For example, who do you employ as a customer assistant? Because if it's not focused on the transaction, which is what it was previously, then and focused on inspiration, then are those the same people?
Yes.
You're going to change. And similarly, the way that head office in the past would have managed the stores would have been very top down, very controlled, very linear. Again, all focused on that transaction.
Yes.
Well, can you do that all the time if you're after some of the things that Eero was talking about, like inspiration and customer service, and that's got to be much more flexible, much more adaptable.
So now we're actually getting in the bigger picture where omnichannel is actually very much related to customer experience and that way to employee experience.
Yes.
Because then you can only get good customer experiences if you have well-treated people who know what they're doing and they can do it as well.
Exactly, and that also helps in aligning your personnel and your salespersons, the whole staff. Focusing on the same goal of delivering quality omnichannel.
Okay, now we go into the possibilities. So what kind of possibilities you see that the omnichannel customer journey and the possibilities around it brings to the merchants? If we look a few statistics here, this is actually a survey that Posti made this year around online stores. We can see that in Finland the cross-channel activity is actually growing.
Yes.
So basically, when you search and explore products online, you actually purchase them on brick and mortar, and vice versa. So that there is a big effect there, which we can see that actually there is possibilities because these two are feeding each other. If we're talking about the purchase itself, and the other one is that the cross-channel activity is actually growing. Obviously, at the moment, it's still fairly small, average 4.31, but it's growing towards 2025. But these are quite, like we discussed earlier, quite decent figures, because then we have these new millennials coming, and they are using online so much more than the people my and your age.
Yeah. But for the millennials, it's just the normal world. There isn't online and offline. This is why I say, when we talk about what's the definition of omni-channel retailing, it's just retailing.
Yes.
It's that's the world.
Different phases of
it. That's all it is. When we start talking about omni-channel, what we're reflecting is the retailer challenge in terms of the management of it.
Yes.
But from a customer perspective, it's just that is. So should we actually customers live?
Should we actually discuss that not whether omnichannel is bringing possibilities or not? That is actually just opening up new doors, new ways of getting connect with the customers, affecting on them. Obviously giving them more opportunities to obviously buy, because that's one thing, but to engage with them and provide those good customer experiences.
And that's one of the steps in developing great omnichannel is testing new marketing strategies, just new ways of engaging with the customer, because it's evolving all the time.
Yes.
So you have to be there, catching up with it. So.
And also customers are looking for new stuff all the time.
Right.
So this was true in the physical world as much as it is in the omni-channel world.
Yeah.
We're looking for what's new, what's different, what's so all of that is still happening. But as you say, we've now got new possibilities, because we can mix digital and physical. We can mix real time with more planned type of activity.
Planned, more. We also have to focus on forecasting, because we have multiple channels. So we have got to have the technology and forecasting and the channel demands just to provide and deliver.
Data. And we need data for that.
We need data for that, and we need the systems behind that. We need good order management, good planning systems for that. So that actually the studies show that in 2019, order management systems were the way to go. Actually, number one in investments.
That is actually leading into the question that is this a design matter, or is this a system matter? What kind of a software you are running with? Or is this a combination, sort of combining the software, the organizational structure that you mentioned before, the business models, and so on and so on. So it's just a mixture of everything, and designing obviously these.
And it is about that integration. I don't think it's so important, which particular software or which particular technology, because inevitably you're going to have to link with other software, other technologies, and therefore what's most important is, can it talk to other devices? Can it talk to other things? Can it help the integration rather than hinder the integration?
Yes.
And that's the key element. So you talk about order management systems. Well, you want an order management system that does actually link in to your other systems.
Exactly,
You don't want it to be something separate that then the customer assistant in the store can't pull up on a mobile device, for example.
Right. But also keeping in mind the how we're approaching the customer and how the customer is approaching us.
Yes.
And so always keep in mind the customer, not only the technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, there is quite interesting view that actually came up through Forrester research, the latest Forrester research about Omnichannel. So basically, I think it's so interesting to see how small portion the buying is amongst all these others, because basically the Omnichannel actually just extends the customer life cycle and brings all these possibilities, because we're discussing all these possibilities, and obviously it gives the capabilities to grab those possibilities to the merchants.
And again, it makes those different elements much more visible, whereas in the past, and much more complex, whereas in the past, all of those things were managed in a much more linear way. I mean, the actual customer transaction piece has always been a small part of retail. You know, it might be almost the goal, certainly one of the key objectives, but it's always been a small part. There's always been, you know, the profitability of a retailer has often depended upon how good they are at doing their own buying, for example, and negotiating with suppliers. It's been about how well they are good at marketing their own brand. But what Omnichannel has provided is further opportunities to do that in different ways. So, you know, we can now use social media, we can do targeted advertising rather than the broad cast advertising that we did in the past. So it's allowed for new techniques, and part of the challenge for retailers is that it hasn't got rid of any of the old stuff.
And therefore the new players are coming into the market who can.
We still want stores. We still want TV ads. We still want posters on the wall. So you know, that's part of the challenge. Is it's not like it's replaced something. It's just added.
And we're coming back to the fact that it's a short period of time when all this technology has happened, and obviously there's the old structures, and then there's so much new stuff going on. We are exploring as customers, the retailers are exploring as providing these new things. Then there's data. Nobody really knows how you can really use it in the future. Eero mentioned earlier that there is VR and AI and everything is coming. So, which is the speed is breathtaking.
And obviously, talking about big data, BI, of course, is how to use it and how to understand it. How to understand it, and there are great solutions for that. You know, because we're people, and it's easier to maybe just understand visualizations, you know, and just make it easy for you. Make it easy for you to as a retailer, as an administrator, and make it easy for your customers too.
And I think you make a really good point about the business intelligence and how you use that data, particularly when it's customer related, because as you also say, the customer's human. So you cannot just use that data in a robotic way. You know, there's ethical considerations about privacy, about when are you pushing too hard, when is it appropriate, when is it not appropriate, and so on. So again, there's some real challenges there. Whereas when we were in a physical space, a good customer service advisor knew when not to push the customer any further.
That's when we,
you know. But if you've let AI make those decisions, how do we know what decisions?
AI is the supportive role. I mean, we can't give all the all the hands-on in AI, but that we can't.
But it's a shortcut for a lot of companies.
It's a shortcut.
And there's a danger there.
It should be a supportive role. And then we come to that fact that you have to know your customer. You have to know how your customer is buying, how would they like
how
to
they're
buy.
discovering and exploring, like we have
Yeah,
seen
exactly.
here. Yes.
Yeah, how would they would like to buy in the future,
Mm.
and
Yes.
be there, reach the customer at the certain
Time when they want to click and
time
buy.
period. Right.
Plus, you obviously, I like the fact that the buying is such a small part of
It
it,
is.
because discovering, exploring, using, and obviously the engagement,
Yes.
when all those work,
Absolutely.
makes obviously.
And then we come to
long-
personalization
Yes.
and engaging your
Absolutely.
customer.
Yeah.
Right.
But because we are running out of time, and because we have some uncertainties with the network, we're a bit behind the schedule. But I would actually jump on the retailers who have managed to build great omnichannel experiences. We can see if we jump just on the few operators here in Finland. Actually, not sure whether we talk about omnichannel or just online
Yes,
here.
Online, yeah.
But there is few who've actually managed to do it in Finland. Soon we are actually going to discuss about UK, because that's so much more interesting, because you are so much further down on the road from us. But one thing is interesting, that these are the most popular stores in Finland, but you earlier mentioned that there's one particular retailer who's managed to build a great omnichannel experience here, which is Varustelleka.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. Tell me a little bit about why they have managed. What's behind their success?
I think it goes back to the previous slide about looking at the whole circle, making sure that you have real engagement, as well as understanding the role of the store.
Yes.
For example, you know, the role of the store is changing. It is not just about transaction. It is also about marketing. It's about the brand. It's about customers experimenting and experiencing. You know, you look at a company like Apple and the Apple stores. The Apple stores have huge sales per square meter, I should say, but actually that isn't their focus. Their focus is actually about getting people in, getting them playing with the products, getting them using them, answering questions, being able to respond immediately to those questions, whether it's verbally through the customer assistant, or whether it's supported by a device where they have the information and so on. But they've done really well in bringing that together. But how many stores do Apple have? Not so many.
Exactly. And they are more like experience centers.
And that's a big challenge for most of our high streets, because, you know, and certainly we're experiencing that in the UK, is do we have too many stores?
Yeah, and I suppose it's also that if we look at these again, these online players, they are opening up the showrooms, they are opening the physical spaces where they can actually affect on omnichannel way.
And of course, sometimes they don't have to open up the physical spaces. I see in this list, you know, companies like Amazon, companies like AliExpress. Hey, they don't have any stores in Finland.
No.
They don't even have a Finnish online shop.
Yes, exactly.
And yet they're retailing in Finland, and they're doing business, and they're doing quite big business in Finland. So this is part of the challenge as well, because they will be using showrooms, but their showrooms will be Stockmann and Sokos and these other Finnish retailers.
Ones. So the omnichannel world is actually quite different.
It is
from the one that we've discussed
today.
Very
different, and very different in terms of how competition works.
Yes, so they actually have built up the partner network, sort of building their omnichannel experience.
But again, we're all in this omnichannel world, so it's not just about what they build up, it's also about what their competitors build up.
Yes,
because customers will use that as well.
So I actually have to ask this question. It wasn't in my mind until now, that should we actually just skip the whole omnichannel? Should we just talk about modern retail?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just
absolutely, it's just retailing. We are in an omnichannel world. That doesn't mean that every retailer has to have omnichannel. You look at some of the discounters, for example, very focused on stores, because online, particularly transaction, can be very expensive to do that last mile, that last kilometre. They may do very little on social media. They may do, but they will still have a website which will give you a location and help you to find the store and that sort of thing. But they have a different strategy. They are cutting out everything that is adding cost to the business. So if some of these omni-channel elements are going to add cost to the business, they will avoid them wherever possible. And that allows them to bring the price of the product down. And for the customers that are focused on price, that's a great offer. So although we're in an omni-channel world, it doesn't mean we have to do everything. And that's part of the retailer's challenge, is to say, what is my strategy? And how does that fit with what is available? All those opportunities that Eero was talking about. What do we want to take advantage of? And what do we want to say, no, not yet.
Right.
And that's not our piece of cake.
It's not our piece of cake. But that will change over time. You know, some of those costs will change over time. Delivery costs, we get automated vehicles or something, suddenly delivery costs become very little.
Actually, talking about delivery cost case, John Lewis in UK, which is a great example. I just actually tried to get everything in one slide here. So basically, a retailer who has jumped into this omni-channel world years and years ago, years back, they have done the inspiring customers. They have great brick and mortar store and locations in UK. They have the operational excellence in there, and as we can see, the cross sales have gone up.
Absolutely, but the big but is the profits have gone down. So the cost of providing all this has hit the bottom line. And so John Lewis is an employee partnership. They all share in their profits, and all of that information is very publicly available. So if anybody listening wants to go and research that more, they'll find all the information available. And last year, the profit was zero.
That's unbelievable.
There was no money to share out amongst the partners, whereas normally there would be money to do that. But as you can see, huge revenue growth. And online now is more than 40% of their business. I mean, this is not small. This is absolutely huge, and may well end up being over 50%. And at certain peak times in the year, so we're just coming up to Christmas, it will be an even bigger proportion. And the challenges will be even harder.
But just have to face new challenges and find solutions to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you see some retailers, so for example, Ocado in the UK, which is an online grocery retailer, they don't have stores, but they do provide the background logistics and online requirement for other retailers who do have stores. And they are investing heavily in technology in order to be able to, they've totally restructured warehousing such that it is designed for picking many small products. Whereas in the past, warehousing was all about picking bulk, and then you take it to the store and you break it down in the store, and the customer picks one off the shelf. And they've totally redesigned that. And as such, by doing that, they cut out a load of costs. So in the picking, and if you can cut out enough cost in the picking, maybe that compensates for the cost of delivery. So solutions will come, but we're in flux. We're in development phase.
So if we try to find out as a takeaway for the listeners, how to avoid those pitfalls, for example, that John Lewis has faced, or Apple has faced, or any of these who have been on the first phase of the omnichannel. What should we learn from there?
I think it's about, first of all, being very clear about your strategy. What are we trying to do? Which customers are we trying to reach? And that's not just about what you're trying to do and who you're trying to reach. It's also about what are you not trying to do, and which customers are you not trying to reach? Because that's important when it comes to decision making. But then it's about thinking about, in an omni-channel world, how do I need to be organized in order to meet those strategic objectives? How do I need to think about, for example, my performance metrics at the employee level, at the store level, at the head office level? Because many of them will be based on the old linear world. They won't be based on the network digital world.
It is. Yeah, that's one of the issues actually, because they're not given or prioritizing the digital world high enough, and at the same time only focusing on the core business. That's the issue there that should be facing the digital world.
Yes.
More regularly.
And I suppose bringing the digital world part of the brick and mortar. For example, what's the role for the cash clerk these days?
Yes.
It's not just cashing out, like you said, not handing over the product and cashing out. That has to be the one that provides actually more information that you can find online and gives that customer good customer experience and engage.
And going back to one of Eero's points, there is something different about physical, and we are human beings, and so we have to really leverage what is different about physical. In the same way that there are advantages of digital, and we have to leverage the advantages there. But it's about bringing those two things together.
And I think that's the beauty of it. If I look 10 years back, we really went to online. All were facing online. Now we're sort of getting a little bit back on the physical world as well, and combining it so it would be as good for the customer as possible, according your strategy.
Valuing the service more and more.
And hence you see the pure play online retailers like Amazon, buying stores and experimenting with stores, because they understand that there is a physical element to this, and there will be in the future.
Yes. I was actually about to ask also that who should take the initiative, but when you mentioned the strategy, it's clearly from the top.
It is.
This is although it is real leadership from the senior team, but it's not about a hierarchical thing. This is about giving clear guidance, and then it's allowing the employees, everybody, to do whatever makes the most sense in order to meet that strategy. So it's quite interesting, because it isn't, again, we're going away from this linear world where somebody at the top makes a decision and it just gets handed down all the way through the chain, and that happens. It's about having direction from the top and actually being out of control of some of those variables. If you look at all the big online case studies, it's all about platforms. Take Apple, for example. It's about the platform. Well, actually, in platforms, you are, you're controlling some things, but there's other stuff that you are just letting go of. And you're letting customers, or you're letting suppliers, or you're letting whoever interact and work out how they're going to make it work. It's back to the network. So it's a different kind of leadership as well.
So it requires actually quite a bit of action from the different areas of the retailer. But I suppose there's listeners here who probably think that, what can I do in my position? So everybody can do a little.
Absolutely.
One of them is the customer, and putting customer on the center. Everybody's action.
And just getting in that mindset that, you are, whatever your role, it's part of this much wider activity that is going on around the whole network.
Yes.
And sometimes it might not be appropriate that you do something. It might be better if that is done digitally, or if that is done in the store, or whatever. And so you want to try and, not try and control everything as we've done in the past, but actually say, no, this is more appropriate over there.
Mm.
And that's part of the challenge of integration. It's about, you know, what do you control, what don't you control?
Yeah, and you have to be agile as well.
Yes.
On that.
Yeah.
It's a big cake. You gotta have your master plan, but you have to have patience to take it in small steps. But you have to be consistent doing it all. I mean, all the time, and continue doing it, and do minor releases, and you know, going forward. One step at a time.
This is such an interesting topic that we could discuss hours and hours.
Oh yeah, we could. Yeah.
But I hope, Richard, that we can actually invite you one of our events next year to talk about this matter more in depth.
Yeah.
Because it's been a great pleasure to have you here, and thank you for the audience. And we are very sorry for the technology issues here, but I suppose this is one of these things that we just have to adapt.
They were just very good examples.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you so much, and the recording will be available soon, so you will get emails from us. And thank you once again, Richard and Eero. It was a pleasure. Have a good day. Bye-bye.